All right. Thank you, Akiva. Thank you, Adorama, for having us. My name is Pete Isgrig, and I am with SanDisk with Western Digital, SanDisk Professional as well. We are one company, and we are here today with the fabulous, wonderful Dixie Dixon, who will be talking a little bit about fashion photography because it is Fashion Photography Week at Adorama, and we are excited to be a part of that. So, Dixie, please take it away. And for those of you in the audience watching, please put comments in the chat. I'm going to be monitoring that, and I'll be interrupting Dixie throughout the evening and asking your questions. So please have them ready to go.
Awesome. All right. Thanks for that, Pete. It's good to see everybody on here. Oh my gosh, it's always such a joy to work with Adorama and SanDisk. So thank you guys so much for having me. It's always such an honor to be here. Yeah, so I'm Dixie Dixon, obviously. I do like to give away a book at the end of all of these talks. And the way that I do that is I randomly choose someone on Instagram, like a recent follow, and then I will mail you a signed copy of my book. So if you would like to win one, feel free to follow me on here. And then if you don't like me, you can unfollow me later. No problem on that. But yeah, that's how you can win a book, and good luck with
if you
that.
have already followed Dixie and you still want to enter, quickly unfollow her and then refollow her, and you'll appear in her recent followers and you'll be entered into her little raffle here at the end of the event.
Yes, great point, Pete. Absolutely. So I'm obviously a fashion photographer by trade, is my ultimate passion. And what I've found is photography really is the outward expression of inward significance. And as photographers, we have so much power today. You know, we help businesses move product, we transform businesses into brands. We also make the influencers influential. We help actors book roles. I mean, we can do so much today as photographers, but most importantly, photography to me is very much therapy. And photography has just been a lifelong love affair. And I've always had photography jobs. Anytime I'm dealing with something in life, I turn to photography. You know, when life can get really lifey, I turn to photography, and that's really what just soothes my soul, and I can express my creativity. And so I do a lot of personal projects. I don't know if any of you guys do a lot of personal. I think they are so incredibly important in not only expressing your creativity and your soul, but also to drive clients to you. So basically, you know, law of attraction is always at work, and the work that you put out there and that you show in the world is the kind of work that you're going to attract back to you. So this is a recent project that I've been working on. This is kind of the connection between the beasts of our planet and the humans of our planet, just because I love animals. I've always loved animals. So I've been doing these different kind of fashion shoots with animals, and it actually started with the project that I worked with David Yarrow. He's this amazing wildlife photographer, and he wanted to start shooting models, and he asked me to bring the model, and then he would bring the animals, and we actually got to go to Montana and work together on this particular shoot. And it was just such a fun experience. The wolf is actually like a really big dog, very cool to work with. Not too stressful. Some of the bigger animals are a little bit more intimidating. This is one of the giraffes that I've gotten to photograph. His name's Gerald. And it's crazy to me because Gerald was such a model. He was incredibly great to work with. He was doing all the poses. You know, the Carson, she was such a sport throughout this whole process. She just kind of leaned on the giraffe. Gerald was cool with it. They kind of really had a really beautiful connection in these shots. And you know, there was a big fence back there that I had to edit out of the background, but I shot the model and the giraffe together in this frame. So it was just a really fun shoot. And believe it or not, I accidentally left one of my lenses in the cage, in the giraffe cage, during this production. And I came back to get it, and it was gone. It was my 35mm lens, and I could not figure out for the life of me where it was. So I kept searching the giraffe cage, searching around it, and I finally found it. It was in a pail of water and I picked it up. It's dripping water. So Gerald had chewed on it and then launched it over the fence, and it actually landed in this small pail of water. So you just never know what's going to happen on photo shoots. And it was funny because I said to myself, there's no way that Nikon can fix this, but they were actually able to fix that 35mm 1.4 lens, and I still use it today. So that's a good testament to the sturdiness of those lenses. But so this is just a really fun personal project I've been working on. It might eventually turn it into a gallery show or something like that, but they're all mainly natural light. When you're working with animals, it's tough sometimes to use strobe because it spooks them. So you really kind of have to be very careful, tread lightly when you're photographing animals. And also you got to find models that are, you know, basically comfortable around these different animals. So this was a beautiful zebra that we photographed. His name's Zach. And I like to match the wardrobe with the animal. And it just kind of brings in that fashion photography look. So I love black and white. I feel like you get more to the soul of the person in black and white. And
hey, Dixie, that leads into sort of a question we had before the audience from the earlier submissions. They want to know what kind of lighting you use for fashion photography and whatnot. They specifically mentioned they heard hard lighting is recommended.
Oh, interesting. You know, hard lighting is great. It can be really cool for fashion photography, very edgy. Sometimes I will use hard lighting. But ultimately, I tend to like the soft lighting, and that just really and truly, it depends on your style. Fashion photography can be so many different things. It can be hard lighting, it can be soft lighting, it can be moody lighting. It really has to go along with the storyline that you're photographing. It has to go along with your style. Your style isn't something that you have to go out and force. You just have to find what really speaks to your soul and your heart when you're shooting. And if the soft lighting really speaks to you, I would say try to focus on that. But you can also do some other shoots and stuff to try to find your style. But ultimately, it's really dependent on the vision and the look you're trying to capture. If it's like a real moody kind of fashion story, you want to have moody lighting to match that. So it really kind of runs the gamut of lighting, but I love natural light. Natural lighting is one of my absolute favorites. This is shot on natural light. So it's backlit by the sun, it's front lit just with a reflector. So I always try to fill from the sun side. So the sun is coming, you know, from this direction, I'll fill from a similar direction so that it's not too contrasting. It doesn't look fake, because I tend to love the lighting that looks really natural and really beautiful. I don't like the overly lit types of looks. And that just really kind of goes along with my style. Like this one, we're stuck shooting kind of midday, kind of early in the midday, but I always like to have the model kind of turn her head towards the lighting, and it really just accentuates her beauty and her jawline. So that's a really good way to do it, especially if you're shooting, you know, window light. You know, think about the direction of your light and having your model turn towards that direction. It's going to light up and illuminate her face really beautifully. So lots of different ways to utilize light, and it really kind of depends on the time of day, whether it's location, whether it's studio. I love to get started as early as possible on shoot days, especially when you're on location, just because that light in the morning, like this was morning light, it's just absolutely gorgeous. This is direct light. And really, it's so simple because you just shoot into it and it looks amazing, and keeps it really easy. So I definitely recommend you guys, if you do a lot of client work, that's awesome, because obviously it's good to pay your bills. But I recommend doing personal work at least once a month, because that's going to really invigorate your creativity and keep you fresh, keep your portfolio fresh, because it's easy to get in the monotony of client work every day. And then that personal work will drive the client work even more, because you'll start attracting more clients that have that vision of your style. So that's kind of how I like to do it. Like this one, we were actually able to work with flash. He was cool with flash photography, though we just used a reflector in this shot, and just an amazing, amazing longhorn. And I did actually the styling of this shot. We had a great makeup artist, and Roxanne is pretty much game for anything. She's one of my favorite models to work with.
Dixie, how many people think that these images are photoshopped together, that these animals are placed in there or the model is placed in there later? Because like you look at these images and they're so spectacular in that you're like, that person could not have gotten close to that close to that animal.
Right, absolutely. It's funny because on the giraffe image, a lot of people think that the model was added into that picture with the
Right.
giraffe, but it was actually shot together. Like we were giving that giraffe crackers in order for him to cooperate. He was so cool to so cool to work with. But yeah, it's very surreal. I'm like, no, I want to. So then I like to show people the behind the scenes videos so they can see that it was actually all shot together. That is a very, very good question. You just there's so much, Photoshop and stuff these days. It's nice to be able to shoot things in camera.
Yep.
That's kind of my passion for sure. So much fun. So here's just kind of a broad list of my clients. I don't just shoot fashion. I shoot kind of a broad range. Anything commercially based is what I shoot. It's interesting because fashion is my absolute favorite, but anything that I shoot, I kind of tend to shoot in a very fashionable way. So if it's for another company like Disney or American Heart Association or whatever, I kind of tend to bring my fashion vision into all of those different commercial clients. So definitely keeps it interesting, and there's never a dull moment on each of my shoots.
Dixie, that leads into another question that we had. Somebody was asking, are there directories or other listings of editors and art buyers and contact that you can get in contact work for seeking assignments, etc.? Like, how did you find those clients, and can you recommend any websites or places for people to look through to try to find work?
Oh, for sure. When I was starting out, I actually attended the Advertising Professional Association, and someone had recommended Agency Access and Wonderful Machine were a really great tool. So Agency Access has a big database of all the clients within the United States and abroad as well. And so you can look up different clients on there, whether it's magazines, brands, or ad agencies, and you can actually find the art director associated with each of those brands or ad agencies. So it's a really great tool because you can figure out and hone in on which, brands or ad agencies that your style really fits. And then you can reach out to them. That usually will have their email and their phone number. And I usually try to set up a meeting with them so that I can kind of show them my new portfolio. And sometimes it's crazy because you have to make 20 cold calls to get one in-person meeting. So it's definitely a numbers game when you're starting out and you're trying to get your name out there, trying to get your portfolio out there. So I definitely recommend trying to get a few in-person meetings. And then once you've had a meeting with those clients, it's good to keep them updated like once a month on your new work. Because then when they have a campaign come across their desk and they say, oh, I need a photographer for this campaign, then you'll be at the top of their mind and they'll contact you to submit a bid for that different campaign. So definitely recommend Agency Access for that. But once you get a few bigger clients in the fashion industry, then kind of the word tends to spread like wildfire and you'll start getting a lot more word of mouth clients. So yeah, very good question. So I wanted to go through my gear. I saw one of the questions on there was, what gear do you use? So obviously I'm using the Nikon Z8 these days. I'm obsessed with this camera. I'm going to talk about the campaign here in a little bit. I hold all my gear and these Manfrotto backpacks and rolly bags. They're really great to carry everything. This is just a quick shot of my lenses and my cameras. I love prime lenses. I find that I like to be my own walking zoom because it tends to feel more creative to me and more like I'm a part of something. I do have a couple zooms now. I'm going to talk about those later, but ultimately some of my favorite lenses are the 35 millimeter for fashion photography, for like the wide angle shots to really capture the scene as well as the model within it. If you think about your iPhone cameras or whatever cell phone cameras, they're like a 35 lens. So it's kind of a cool lens for a certain type of look, but my absolute favorite lens is probably the 85 millimeter 1.2 right now. Oh my gosh, just don't have enough good words to explain this lens. It's just beautiful bokeh, makes everything look so gorgeous. So those are two of my favorite lenses for fashion photography. I also love the 105 as well. So love having all the gear to work with. But ultimately, my workflow, I tend to keep it as simple as possible. On set, I'm basically shooting tethered to a computer, and I love to use Capture One software to do this. I found that on set, it's pretty user friendly. You can capture everything, right onto the computer and immediately back those up to your SanDisk Western Digital drives, and just makes things simple. And I've also found that exporting out of Capture One, it just renders the most beautiful colors, as opposed to Bridge or Lightroom. I just find that the Capture One files look more like three-dimensional than some of the other software programs. That's just my preference, but definitely love it. And then on set, we are always backing up to the SanDisk drives or the Western Digital. It's a same company. So we're always backing those up. Extremely, extremely important. We use the enterprise quality drives. And also for something super portable, like if we're on, location, I'll use these mobile SSDs. I also love these SanDisk ones. They're the same company, but these little SanDisk ones, they have a place for a keychain. They're really helpful to use. They're extremely fast because they're SSDs, so they don't have a spinning disk. And I've just found that having 3 of those on set while I'm shooting and having everything backed up to those 3 drives, that I'm not going to lose data that, a client is putting thousands of dollars into. So it's just so important, because the last thing you want to do is end up after the shoot and losing all of the data. So really important to always back up your images, especially on set. Really good. And then sometimes I do shoot to card as well, but we'll still back up, throughout the day to the hard drives. So very important stuff. I use Post Haste, which is a really easy free software to create my folder structure. So here's the basic folder structure that I'm utilizing. I've got the raw images, I've got video edited in RAW, all these production documents, call sheet, tear sheets, model releases, permits. So all of these have a place, and I can just drag and drop them into these different folders. So Post Haste basically creates, like with the click of the button, your whole folder structure. So it's really helpful to use, and I've been using it. Actually, Lucas Gilman turned me on to this software. So it's really, really helpful. And I use it on every single job. So then once everything is backed up on set, I come home to my studio, and then I will back up to these huge G-RAID systems. So I will have a live work drive, basically, and that's the drive that I work off of. And then I have an archive drive, which has all the raw stuff backed up on it as well. And I don't touch that as far as editing goes. And then that's outside of my house or studio, so that just in case a fire or something would happen to my studio space. So it's just really important. And actually, Western Digital just launched the G-RAID mirror, and it automatically comes in RAID 1, which is really cool because it's great for still photographers. It's automatically set up for you to back up duplicate on the same drive. Did I say that right, Pete? Make sure. I'm excited about that one. I will definitely use it in my still photography. So, because it's kind of confusing sometimes when you're trying to set up your drives, whether it's RAID 5 or RAID 4 or RAID 1. But
that was the biggest feedback we got with the previous G-RAID products, that people just were sort of a little hesitant because they didn't know how to set a different RAID mode, but everybody pretty much wanted the mirror mode on it for that automatic backup. So we revised the product, and now it comes out of the box RAID 1 ready to go for that automatic duplicate.
That's awesome, especially for those folks like me who are not super techie. We try. I definitely learned what I need to, but I'm definitely not over technical. So yeah, I think that's a really cool product. I can't wait to try that one out. So definitely have backups of your stuff. And it's funny because I actually lost my whole first hard drive when I was first starting out, because my hard drive, it was plugged into a Mac, and I then had plugged it into a PC, and the drive, it was not a Western Digital drive, but it was just an old Walmart drive, but it failed. And so I lost all that beautiful work, and it's still to this day, it kills me because those are like my very first photographs I ever made. and I don't have any of them, or they're not even online, and it kills me sometimes because it's fun to go back and see how you progressed and some of your old stuff, but definitely
Yep.
back it up.
I'll sort of learn that lesson the hard way. I lost
Yes.
3/4 of a semester of college work because a computer died and I didn't have a backup. And after that, I was like backing up everything to zip drives at that time. It was a long
Oh
time
my
ago.
gosh. That's so funny. Yes. It's like we used to have CDs or so many things. It's so nice that we have these super fast hard drives to work with, and you can daisy chain them
Zip drive
together.
would do 75 megabytes on it. I think that was the capacity. And that
Yeah,
was outstanding because it was like, oh my God, that's so much better than those 1.5 megabyte floppy disks that, you were trying to squeeze your files on in the late 90s.
that's awesome. It's amazing how fast technology is changing.
Mhm.
Yeah, very cool. So I wanted to talk about a little bit about the Z8 campaign, and man, it's just such a joy to get to work with the prototypes and things before they're released. And the Z8 is probably my favorite camera I've ever shot. I was really in love with the Nikon D850 when it came out, and I shot that for so long. And it was sort of hard for me to pry myself out of shooting the D850. But this new Z8 is very, very similar in the way that the body style feels. Ergonomically, it's not like a Z7 II. It's a bigger body style than the Z7 II, but it's a lot lighter and smaller than the Z9. So I really loved shooting it. It's been such a joy because it's a great camera for hybrid shooting. You can go from shooting video to shooting stills very quickly. It's lightweight, so you can put it on a gimbal, which is very helpful because the Z9 is quite heavy on a gimbal. So I really fell in love with shooting the Z8. I just got it out of the box, the prototype, and started shooting with it. And this was actually the first shot of that campaign. But what was so crazy about this entire shoot is I had to produce this entire production in only 5 days. And so that was definitely a challenge. Oh my goodness. We had 3 huge locations to set up. We had 6 different models, animals. I always have to add animals into the mix. So, we met with Nikon in New York. They flew us in to meet about the job. And it just so happened that my shoot needed to be in 5 days. So you pull it together and you make it happen. And this was the very first shot of the campaign. We had this beautiful poodle. And I cannot remember the poodle's name for the life of me, but she was amazing. She was not super into the shoot in the beginning. I had wanted her to sit on one of these cute heart-shaped chairs right next to the model, but she was not having it. She was not liking the heart-shaped chair. So then we moved the fainting couch over there, and she just sat pretty right on that chair. So sometimes you feel like you're not going to get the shot. You just got to keep massaging it until you get exactly what you're looking for. And we ended up nailing the shot in this particular scene. But it was definitely a fun production. When you have the animals in there, it can add a lot of extra time. So I think we spent 2 hours trying to get the lighting set up, trying to get the poodle correct, trying to get the models, hair and makeup perfect. And but it all comes together eventually. And this was the shot that the Nikon ended up choosing from that particular setup. Really
Dixie,
fun.
that leads into another question that we have. So you mentioned that you had to do this one really, really fast. What is the normal time? Somebody asked, how much time do you spend planning a shoot, and how long does it take to usually set up and stage something?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, ideally, we'll have 2 weeks. It's really nice to have some leeway, some time. It's nice to be able to have your choice as far as talent, models go, hair and makeup, wardrobe. It's nice to be able to book that in advance, but some shoots just have to come together super fast. Like I've gotten calls from a commercial company needing the pictures over the weekend, and I gotta, put it together and deliver. And, some photographers might need a lot more lead time. I like to just, take gigs and roll with it, and we just create what they need. And I'm kind of up to the challenge, and it kind of makes it a fun challenge. So it just really depends on the actual client and what their needs are, basically how long it takes. Sometimes even some things are a month in advance. You just never know. It really kind of depends on the company. So yeah, great question. And then the poodle was totally vibing at this point. Very cute. We just had a blast with this poodle. and the model really did great. She was awesome to work with. You know, we had her hair and makeup that really kind of matched the poodle, and I wanted to grab all these pastries to put on the table, and keeping in mind that the different looks that we did for this shoot was all just kind of brainstorm sessions with my team. We came up with different ideas. I do a lot of mood boards and looking for inspiration. And so the mood boards kind of get us all on the same page. And then I can show that to the wardrobe stylist, the hair and makeup artist, and so that we all come together on the vision, basically. It was super fun because we had to produce a behind the scenes film, a bunch of stills, as well as a fashion video. And I wish that I got to showcase the video on Zoom, but it doesn't play well. So if you want to see the final fashion film that we created, you can see it on the Nikon page on their Z8 camera. So you'll see all the stuff that I created for them video wise on there. But these two models were actually a real couple. So I had found her through an agency, and then I was looking on her Instagram to kind of get a feel for her vibe and her style and everything. And I found that she had this boyfriend, and I was like, oh my gosh, we have to cast them together because they're going to have such a great connection together in all the pictures. So it worked out really well for the fashion film. And I shot this with the 85 lens. So you can see it creates a really beautiful bokeh, and you get those beautiful colors going. And so a lot of the images is just really showcasing their connection. And I love that sort of Marie Antoinette sort of fashion. And so we brought that to life. We had some interesting hair and makeup for that. And this was one of my favorite shots from the campaign. So you can see him in the mirror, and it just creates that 85 lens creates such a beautiful bokeh. And so I did very, very little retouching on these, just very minimal. Nikon likes to have truth in advertising so that, you know, what you see is what you get. So you can create amazing images right out of the camera. So that's what my goal was throughout this whole shoot. And I used a lot of complementary colors. So you'll see that it's got that yellow and that purplish blue color. So I'm utilizing that within this shoot to create a real beautiful vibrancy. So if you look at the different moods that are associated with these different colors, you can instantly set someone's mood that's looking at your photographs. So the yellow has a really happy look to it. It's also Nikon's color. So I wanted to bring that into it. And then you get those blues, which have a real beautiful effect. So if you utilize colors that are across from each other on the color wheel, it's going to really have a beautiful vibrancy. You can also use analogous colors, which are colors that are right next to each other on the color wheel. That has a really interesting look. So if you basically study color theory, you're going to find a lot of different great tools to utilize in your photographs and really utilize color in an interesting way. So I'm always looking at that. I actually studied business in college. I didn't study photography necessarily as a major. I majored in entrepreneurship. So I kind of had to learn this kind of stuff after the fact, just through YouTube University and researching and yeah, different, you know, sources like that. So the next location that we went on to was the ranch location, and it was a beautiful, beautiful ranch. And we got this cool Bronco involved. One of the hardest parts of the shoot was actually getting the release from Ford Motor Company. That's a tough one because Ford Motor Company is such a huge company. And so getting in touch with the right person. But I was able to, you know, contact somebody at Ford, and we were back and forth a million times. And finally, we worked out a great scenario so that we were able to use the new Ford Bronco and these different ads. So worked out really good. This was the safari feel, the safari couple. And we had some cool wardrobe for this, and a really crazy day of shooting at this ranch. We shot with camels and whatnot, and we had some nice wind going. But if you don't have wind, you can always also like utilize a hair fan or a leaf blower. I always talk about this. You'll see these on a lot of different sets. They're the most amazing hair fan because it's not too much wind. It's just like that perfect amount, creating a nice little breeze in the hair, which looks really beautiful on camera and creates a little bit of movement. And it also makes your images look more high fashion. So I'm utilizing these leaf blowers. You can get these from Home Depot or Lowe's. I don't think Adorama sells these, but they could, Adorama. But yeah, they're really great tools. So definitely recommend it. This is kind of like that Matrix feel. We've got the safari couple going. Landry is such a great model to work with, and so is this guy. You know, really fun shoot. So we had the Bronco in the background, they're in the foreground, and these are all natural light. Like, I'm not utilizing any kind of extra lighting. This is just natural light, kind of an overcast day where the sun is just peeking out of the sky a little bit. And it was pretty overcast most of the day though, but it creates really nice looks for video and for stills. So this was really fun. And this is a composite. So I had wanted to shoot with some giraffes for the shoot. The giraffes were not available on the day that we shot, so I kind of composited this one together with my team, and it kind of has that real cool safari look to it. Nikon did not use this image. This is just something that I thought was fun to put together after the fact. With the Bronco. We were able to work with camels though. Those were tough to work with. They were all over the place, beautiful. They're like big dogs. So they bounce all over the place. They're playing, you know, so this was the one shot that I got with Landry and the camels that actually turned out really well. But it was definitely a challenge to try to get the camels to not move so much because they're just all over the place. The horses were really easy to work with. This is the very end of the day. It's actually pretty dark outside for this shot. So I'm doing like the high ISO, probably 1000 ISO. But this camera excels at the really high ISOs. So makes it really easy for us to shoot, you know, into a little bit darker looks and darker lighting. So it's very helpful. Keep in mind for this particular production, I'm not able to shoot tethered because the software is not out yet. Like Capture One doesn't even know that the Z8 is, you know, alive yet because it's not released. So when you're working with like a prototype camera, you know, none of the softwares are updated to create the tethering. So I actually have to shoot to memory cards. So for this particular shoot, I was shooting to the SanDisk Pro memory cards for the CF Express. So that's the cards that the Z8 takes. They're blazing fast, and then we use the SanDisk card reader to basically download while we're shooting on set. It was so important to have a digital tech, you know, there downloading all those cards while I'm shooting, just so that we don't lose anything, we don't lose any data. I tend to shoot, when I'm shooting for a prototype camera, I tend to shoot both RAW and JPEG. And the reason is sometimes, you know, they haven't updated the Nikon software yet. So it takes a little while for us to get the software for these different campaigns in order to read the raw files. So at least I have those high-res JPEGs to look at and kind of review my work first. So I still do shoot RAW plus JPEG quite often, just for the ease of use and proofing the raw JPEGs. But it definitely is very important to keep that in mind if you're shooting with prototypes and things like that. So definitely want to back up on set. Very important for that. And they have great connections, super fast to use, enterprise quality drives. Gosh, I've been working with Western Digital for many years now, and they're the best drives definitely to have on set, especially if you're shooting for commercial companies.
Okay, I want to call out one little feature there that you're showing in this product image there, that LED button. We heard everybody loud and clear that they hate LEDs on the front of these drives. So we finally put into into our new G-RAID mirror, our G Drive project, and our regular G Drive hard drive, this little LED button that will turn off that LED if you so choose. And I know that was a big pain point for a lot of people. I always just have to put duct tape over them in my because they also sit in my bedroom too. So
that's too funny. I love that. Yes, that's so helpful, because a lot of times when you're in a dark room, you don't want that light blaring at you. That's very cool. And you've got the color coded chords as well now, so you know exactly what chords.
Exactly. You know what chords go where, and you know what speed chords you need to get the maximum throughput for the product that you have.
Yes, that is definitely key. You don't want to use the wrong connector for your drives. So yeah, it's super. I'm glad you brought that up. I'd forgotten about the LED because I always have mine off as well. Very cool. So then we moved on to the third location, And basically, I would shoot the stills first and then move on to shooting the video. We also had two amazing, amazing camera operators on set as well, because obviously when you're doing this type of production, I cannot like shoot me as I'm shooting. And to get all the content we need in the amount of time provided, I've got to have help. So I had a really great cinematographer, Sheldon, as well as his assistant, and Joel. He was just amazing to work with. So they were capturing things as I was capturing, but basically I would shoot the stills first, and then we would have a video focus, and I would direct the video and shoot a little video content. And then Sheldon and Joel were shooting behind the scenes of me shooting. So it was kind of like a shoot of a shoot of a shoot. So all to get the right amount of content, things to edit for the stuff that Nikon was looking for. So this was a really cool location, an old train station in Grapevine, Texas. And it was funny because this was one of the hardest locations to nail down. I'm not sure why. I think that the owner doesn't really like to have photo shoots at the location. He's worried that things are going to get damaged. But I assured him that I had insurance, definitely have to have insurance. And but what was crazy was we only got the okay to shoot at this location the day before the shoot. So I actually had a backup location kind of set up if we needed to use it, just in case. But this location ended up coming through. Apparently, this location, like P. Diddy had wanted to shoot something at this location, and they didn't allow him to shoot there. So I'm really grateful that we actually got to shoot at this location. But it all came together. It turned out, and we ended up, for this shot, we put a fog machine underneath the train, so it would make it look like the train was actually in service. And the train does go daily to different areas, obviously, and takes passengers on different lunches and things like that. So it does work. We were not able to utilize the train when it was moving. So the fog machine adds that instant look where it's actually in use. It's more believable. And so we had these two beautiful models. They were so great to work with. We had kind of had a vintage style going on. And it was just a really fun production. They had a really great instant connection, which is really helpful because sometimes when you're working with talent that have never met each other, it can be a little bit awkward. But they showed up, they brought their A game, and they were so incredible to shoot with. They had a really beautiful connection together, and we were able to use these vintage suitcases and kind of brought it all into it. Lots of hats. If you know me at all, I'm such a hat geek. I always love having hats on set. And I love capturing reflections. This is also with the 85 lens. Creates a really beautiful bokeh. You get that nice reflection. This is all natural light. Very, very simple stuff. I like to keep things as simple as possible when we're shooting, just so that I can really, focus on that connection between the models and the camera. And so I get them walking, talking, I'll do all kinds of different kind of looks with them and a lot of different wardrobe changes. So we got, tons of different looks for Nikon to choose from, and worked really well. Now the indoor lighting was a little bit more challenging because there wasn't a ton of, it was a little bit overcast. So we actually added an HMI outside of this train car and shined it in. I have a really amazing lighting tech that I work with, Eric. He's just the best. He's like the lighting goat. And he just, kind of crafts it in a way that looks really beautiful. And we both have a similar style as far as lighting. So it makes it super fast when we're on set trying to get as many shots as possible. So that light's just shining in really beautifully. And then we added the fog machine. Then I have the model turn his head towards the light, and then it adds a really beautiful look. This is actually shot with a 35mm lens, and kind of creates that cool perspective that draws your eye into the center. And it just all kind of came together in that way. But it's really funny because sometimes you end up with these happy accidents, and this image was one of those moments. And basically the sun came out and just started shining through the skylight of this train, just created these amazing streaks that were just beautiful. So I had maybe 30 seconds to capture this shot, and I had the 85 lens on there, and I'm just shoot just as many shots as I can while that lighting was perfect like that. So that's what I love about photography, is you never can quite prepare for everything, and sometimes you end up with the most beautiful happy accidents. So definitely keep shooting through those moments. You'll get some really cool stuff. This was the 35 lens. You can see that it basically accentuates anything on the edges. It kind of stretches it out. So if you've got a cool fashion gown or something on the edge of your frame, it's going to make it appear even larger. So the 35 lens is fun to play with as far as fashion photography. And I would not recommend shooting headshots with the 35 just because it's going to distort the model's face too much. But with full length wardrobe and stuff like that, the 35 lens can be really cool and really effective. So, and then we kind of ended the day shooting these cool couple shots. You can see how I've definitely have her face towards that lighting that's coming in through the window. Again, that's really, really important in fashion photography because ultimately, when the viewer's eye looks at your photograph, they're going to go to the brightest, sharpest point of that photograph. So if you want their eye to go straight to the model's face and then kind of circle around the image and back up to the face, that's really, really powerful. So you want to kind of control the viewer's eye with lighting and expression and pose. So definitely is a key to do that with fashion photography. And again, you can see the short film that we created as a whole team on the Nikon website under Z8. I wish I could show it here, but Zoom does not play nice with videos. So we will move on a little bit to lighting. Pete, are there any questions at all before I move on to kind of lighting and stuff like that?
Not ones that I think you will probably answer at some point through the rest of the content that you have.
Yeah, perfect. That sounds good. So ultimately, in my opinion, I think lighting really is the love language of photography. And it's funny because you can make the most beautiful person look absolutely terrible with lighting. Like if you've got lighting that is contrasty, too contrasty, like from the wrong angle, if you're shooting with the lighting underneath, like a lot of people I will see, they hold reflectors wrong, just your basic bounce reflector. They will hold it from way like on the ground, bouncing it up underneath their face. It's that ugly up lighting. So I always recommend when you have a reflector to hold it up and at a higher angle so that it has a really nice, beautiful effect on the model's face. So that's how I lit this particular image. I had my assistant, she's basically in shade, but she's got some nice backlit from the sun. And then you hold that reflector high and it creates that nice kind of sheen on her cheek. And that lighting just looks really beautifully crafted. So I definitely recommend that. Always light from above, just because it's just going to look way more beautiful. So I like to keep the lighting super, super simple. So 1 or 2 lights usually, ideally, or natural light. This was actually utilizing 1 light for a model light, and then the other light was just the octo. So a super soft light source, no huge harsh shadows. You can see the shadow underneath her chin is a little bit softer. You can tell we used a softbox, huge softbox for this shot. And it's just such a big difference. You can utilize the harder light sources as well, but I just love the soft lighting. This is just a basic actor headshot. But you can see how I brought out his jawline. So on the one on the left-hand side, that's just natural light, basically window lighting. I'm standing with my back to the window and the light's just wrapping around him. Really beautiful for photographing women, but I really wanted to bring out his jawline. So I put 2 black cards on sides of his body. So it would basically subtract some of the light and make a little bit of a shadow on the edges of his jaw. So that brings out his jawline really nicely. So you can definitely craft that lighting to suit and make your subject look even more iconic. And I do that a lot. This was a recent shoot that I did for 360 West Weddings. We used 1 strobe and basically made it so the natural light and the strobe mixed beautifully. And it just basically 1 light. You can see she's looking towards the light. As usual, we have a hair fan to make the hair a little bit more dynamic. And we've got a really great retoucher on some of this stuff, solstice retouching. But it looks very, very natural. I'm not overpowering the sun. I'm matching the sunlight basically with the strobe. So that's kind of how I tend to make it look more natural. Like you think this could be natural light potentially. So some of these other shots, we just added a little bit of fill. Like I said, 1 strobe, very, very easy. And it's funny because I actually shot this model when she was only 16 years old. And so it always comes full circle. I got to work with her again on this magazine shoot. It was so much fun. And a really beautiful location is actually a Mexican restaurant, believe it or not, Joe T. Garcia's in Fort Worth, Texas. But it has this beautiful area in the back with all these archways. And when you use that 85 lens, it just blurs it out so beautifully and creates a lot of interesting angles and everything like that. So very fun shoot. But like I said, this is natural light here. We didn't even have to utilize any extra lighting, and keeping it really simple. This is a completely different look, but it's still soft. This was a influencer campaign that I worked with Michael Kors on. And we shot this in Dallas, and they wanted more of a harsher look, kind of more paparazzi style. So I actually utilized just a bare strobe with nothing on it. So no any kind of beauty dish or anything like that. It's basically right above my camera, and you can see how it creates a real harsh shadow underneath her chin. But they wanted it that kind of light look, basically like kind of paparazzi lighting, but more beautiful. So I could have used an on-camera flash or something like that, but I just love the look of kind of utilizing a strobe instead, bare bulb, very simple. So basically I had my assistant walk around with the strobe on a stand, and he's just, holding it up towards the model. It creates a real punchy type of look. So it ended up turning out really good. We lit all these that exact same way, but you can see how that has that harsh shadow. It's really beautiful. So it really kind of just depends what you're shooting. We shot this campaign very similar. This was for Osadia Tequila, and we utilized that same type of lighting, kind of paparazzi kind of look, but more beautiful. And you can especially light that way for black and white, because black and whites you can light more contrasty because it has a real cool punch to it. This was some of the magazine ads that they ran. They added a lot of grain to these, but it turned out fun. I mean, it was really fun production. They wanted it very high energy, very kind of sensual. So we ended up shooting their billboards as well. They utilized some of the images for the billboards, and we lit these all very similar, kind of like that paparazzi style lighting. This was their mood board for the shoot. This is what we were kind of going off of in order to create. And man, I love creating in black and white. So if I'm shooting a campaign in black and white, I like to set my camera to black and white. So I'll use like Nikon picture control to set black and white, so I can instantly see, what I'm shooting, what it's going to end up looking like. So it's a very cool way to do it. But
Dixie, with this campaign, I'm just curious, what's the ratio of the photos you actually took during the shoot to the ones you delivered to the client to ones they actually used in their campaigns and in their advertising?
Oh, that's such a great question. Yeah, it's interesting. So we shot for 10 hours. It was a 10-hour day. That's usually what the crew works under. Anything over 10 hours is in overtime. So most clients don't want to pay overtime. So you have, 10-hour shoot day. We probably did probably 6 or 7 different locations within this hotel. This was shot at the Thompson Hotel. And I probably shot 1,500 to 2,000 images.
Wow.
This day. Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, there were so many good ones. These models were so great, but ultimately the client used about 20 images. So 20 final images make it, I like to be very candid with whoever it is I'm shooting, and of just shooting 2 frames to get the shot, in order to get something that looks really natural and effortless, like they're not posing, I shoot through those moments. So I'll, get the model in their zone. It's almost like a dance. And I may shoot and burn some digital files in order to get exactly what I'm looking for. But I want to shoot until I find those moments that look really effortless, like they're just happen to happen in this beautiful scenario. So it definitely is a good question, because you do have to shoot sometimes quite a few to get the shot. And I think some people don't shoot long enough, because sometimes I end up with the best shot at the very beginning, and then sometimes I utilize the best shot when I've worn the model out and their personality really starts coming out at the end. Then I'll get the shot. So it kind of depends on, who I'm shooting, how open they are, and it just it really depends. But ultimately, I love to build the confidence of whoever it is I'm shooting. So like, I'm not one of those photographers that sits there silently shooting. That is the most awkward situation ever. I definitely recommend, talking to your subject as you shoot, saying, that's gorgeous, that's beautiful, move your hair this way, just getting in that zone, because they're going to start feeling more confident. You're going to get even more of a beautiful connection with your subject. So you're going to see that in the model's eyes if they were comfortable or not. So this is actually the owner's wife of the tequila company. She was just gorgeous and so amazing to work with, very natural on camera. So it definitely helps when you've got, models to work with. I did not start out shooting professional models. Keep in mind, I started out shooting portraits of friends and family members and anyone basically that would pay me to shoot. So I had to really kind of learn how to guide people towards the posing. And ultimately what you're looking for is, basically, I like to show whoever it is I'm shooting, even if it's just a portrait, not a fashion model, not someone that's experienced. I like to show them a vision board, a mood board of the different poses that I like. So then they can kind of create those poses in their own way. So if we get stumped during the shoot, we're like, okay, what do we do next? Then I'll show them some of the poses on the vision board and be like, hey, can you do this? And they kind of create it in their own way. And then I kind of guide them a little bit in the frame, and we just kind of create. And it just really takes a lot of trial and error, but S-curves photograph absolutely amazing. You can see the S-curve in this image. I basically had my assistant standing next to her, throwing that gown up in the air for every shot. And you can see how we were doing that here. And it just creates a really nice S-curve, which is really beautiful as far as posing. And we utilized these reflector boards, which are basically insulation board from the hardware store. You can use normal reflectors as well, but we did not have one of those on hand. So we utilized this bounce insulation board and bounced that light back into her face and created this shot that way. This is a really cool location. Window lighting is one of my favorites, just because it's just so soft and so beautiful. And you can just utilize that window light in different ways. Like, this is where I'm parallel to the window, and then I have the model turn their face towards the window, and it kind of illuminates their face really nicely. I'll also put my back to the window and then shoot into the model's face, and then it's just going to even create more of a softer look that way, less contrasty. But it's still soft. So there's different ways to utilize that. I definitely recommend mastering natural light first, and then move into constant lighting and master that, and then move into strobe. Because with constant light, what you see is what you get. So it's a little bit easier to learn. This was in Brazil, and this is natural light plus a strobe behind that tree, just illuminating that model's hair, and kind of creates a nice look where that light goes through her gown really beautifully. So I definitely say work with the lighting that you're given and make it better. It just usually saves a lot of time. Like, this is at the very end of the day, you just added a kiss of light on the model's faces with the ProPhoto strobe. Very simple. I'm utilizing the ProPhoto B1s, which are now B1Xs. Just amazing tools, because they're mono lights. You don't have to plug them in. So you can utilize batteries, and we carry a bunch of batteries with us. And this was in Lake Tahoe. We had a couple strobes here to fill in the sunlight. This was for the Nikon creators ad. Really beautiful location called Sand Harbor. Gosh, I love Sand Harbor. And then this is natural light. This is at the very top of this crazy building. We added a fog machine and just created that look where that natural light streaming through the windows. It's absolutely gorgeous. Gorgeous lighting.
That is probably my favorite image of yours. And
I
see it every presentation that we do. I think I've even used this for some of our advertisements in places as well.
Thank you so much. Yeah, this one came together very organically, kind of on the day of the shoot. The wardrobe stylist showed up. Nellie showed up with this crazy cool gown with all these colors, and I just thought, okay, I think we need to stack the books and just make it sort of a Harry Potter theme or something like that. So thank you for that. Definitely a fun shoot. And a lot of these, this is all with one light. Basically, this was a editorial for Patron Magazine. just really showcasing that jewelry. Keep in mind for this kind of stuff, I'm shooting like f11, f16 in order to get the model's jewelry as well as her face all in focus. It's really important because obviously that's the product. You want to showcase that. And this is just one lighting. This was a really fun shoot. Great talent to work with. Lots of very expensive jewels. We actually had to have security on set for this shoot because I guess some of those jewels were very expensive. So definitely good to have security. You can see the look there. It was just that one lighting. It's a shoot through umbrella, and pointed out that way, it just creates a little bit of a nice softer look instead of having the light directly on the talent. So we're utilizing those shoot through umbrellas quite a lot. So it's very easy breezy. You see I have my SanDisk drive there, and I'm backing up to a computer, and very simple stuff. I like to keep it as simple as possible. This one we did use 2 lights. This was 2 lights in the background to create a really nice silhouette. And I love the idea of fashion photography is just showing shapes. And so we actually didn't have a hat on set. So I ended up, you'll see here in a second, it ended up being a very cool look with we had a cowboy hat. We didn't have like a fancy hat like this. So I actually utilized a reflector and had her hold it, but in a silhouette, it looks like an actual hat and not just a reflector. So then we wanted to do a cowboy theme, kind of a James Bond cowgirl. And these are just more personal shoots that I just love to do. But you can see how we created that. Oh, sorry, guys. Hopefully these little snippets play okay on your end. But you can see that's just a reflector. And she's posing with the martini glass and just getting all these different shapes and having fun. And that's really how you kind of create fun personal work. You just come up with an idea and go shoot it. And it's funny because a lot of the models that I work with, some of them are new faces. You can reach out to the local agencies in your area and basically ask them, hey, do you have any models that need new images for their book? And a lot of times they'll send you some models to work with, and you can go and create some really cool portfolio shoots. So that's actually how I started working with professional talent. It started out with portraits, and then I started shooting new faces for these different agencies. And then now I work with a lot of their more experienced models for different campaigns. But that's definitely how you grow your portfolio. So if you're interested in fashion photography, I definitely recommend working with real professional models because it's going to instantly take your work from here to here without you having to do anything different. So your work is just going to grow really organically. This was a ballerina shoot that I did recently. We had a mirror to work with, which was really beautiful. And she was just awesome. She's actually a model and a ballerina. Her name is Ash. And actually, I ran into her at Buc-ee's the other day. You guys are in Texas. You definitely are a fan of Buc-ee's. So we created this whole ballerina shoot. And I just found the ballerina outfits on Etsy and Amazon. This is an intentional blur. So kind of extending that shutter speed to create a really nice blur in the shot. That's kind of fun to play with. And then this, we actually utilized powder, like flour, basically. So we had a bunch of flour on set, and this was a friend of mine's studio, Eric Clapp. He let us borrow his studio, and he filmed behind the scenes of us, and he let us destroy his studio. There was flour.
How messy did that get? Oh my gosh.
It was very messy. It was kind of insane, actually. But we did put down fabric to hopefully not just, get the flour everywhere, but it ended up everywhere. I feel so bad for him, but we did try to clean up most of it. But it's interesting because you have to backlight stuff like this, like rain. If you backlight it, it's going to really stand out. So we utilized a backlight to really bring out the flower in the shot, and it kind of has like angel wings type of look. So this is a really fun shoot that we got to do, and Manfrotto ended up using a behind the scenes take of this on their socials. So really fun shoot. Pete, how much time do I have? Because I can, I always am over ambitious as far as.
I mean, go as long as you want. We have nobody stopping us, and there's no Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, for sure. Are there any other like questions that I need to address or anything like that? Or
Nope, you're getting to most of them.
okay, cool. Perfect. Yeah, so I thought I'd talk a little bit about posing. It's really important, like I said, to gather a lot of inspiration when it comes to posing, figure out some poses that you think matches the final shot that you're looking for. Then as you're shooting, always look for shapes and triangles and S curves. As the model is doing their posing or portrait, it's really nice if you can look for triangles, like if they're creating triangles with their body or their hands, you can look for those kind of moments because those are going to be really pleasing to the eye in the final shot. So it's always good to shoot through moments like I talked about earlier, and then giving them an action is a really good idea. So they can do, the jump step is a really good one. So they basically act like they're starting to walk and then they go back and forth and it kind of gets that walking look. Giving them props is a really good idea. And then obviously giving tons and tons of feedback as you shoot. So you can see that, she creates a really nice triangle with her arm, with both of her arms, and then creates a really nice S curve with her body here. So I'm always looking for those S curves and kind of trying to guide whoever it is I'm shooting through creating S curves with their body, whether it's turning their knee in to create that nice curve and bringing their arms up in a certain way. Those S curves just photograph so pretty. And it just really comes to life in a beautiful way. So this was a cool shoot that we did in an airplane hangar and all natural lighting. There was actually 2 garage doors on either side. So I had them near the garage door behind the airplane. And so the light illuminates them really nice. I just had them walk and talk towards camera and ended up with this shot that looks really believable and really natural. Doesn't look like they're posing or anything like that. So it's definitely good to shoot through those moments. And so you may end up with 30 frames, but you end up with that one shot that really communicates the vision, and you go for that shot. So that's how we ended up with that.
I love how they look like they're outside the shot, like their heads are outside the frame of the photo because of the garage, the door, I'm guessing, of the hangar.
Yeah, exactly. Like they're walking away from the airplane. Yeah, I love, did you see Top Gun?
I haven't seen the new one yet.
Oh, you haven't? Oh, it's so good. So good. Definitely inspired by that film for sure. Oh, it's so well done. So yeah, I always get inspired by movies and things like that. Giving them a prop like a headdress or a flower headpiece, I mean, really can add a lot to your images. I found this one on Etsy, really beautiful headpiece with the flower. And utilize it in this particular shot, and you just never know what's gonna photograph amazing. This dress was really cool with the side lighting and creates a really nice S curve as well. And with swimwear photography, it's the posing part is so important, but a lot of photographers I think overly pose, and so that's when their images start looking like they're very posy and not very natural. When you're working with experienced models, you don't have to do a ton of posing with them because that really just stifles their creativity. So it's a better idea to show them your vision and then let them run with it. So this particular shoot, Taylor Bryant, she's incredible, but she just kind of naturally does these poses. I told her I wanted to showcase the jewelry, and so she showcased it in a really beautiful way. And then it's almost like a dance. So we just work together and work with the lighting, and I'm shooting and getting that shot and shooting through those moments, and starting out with that vision board just helps create those looks. Light, very, very simple stuff for this particular shot. And then I always love having the flying scarf or something like that in the frame. So always really fun, giving them a prop, really beautiful. And then that light at the end of the day is just beautiful. So whether you put a car, a horse, a fashion model, a portrait, whatever, in that end of day lighting, just really so stunning. Definitely recommend shooting towards sunrise and sunset. is definitely the best time of day to shoot. And this was a very comfortable pose, I'm sure. Not at all, but she rocks it. I was shooting basically above her. This was a stairwell that went down to the water, and I'm shooting down. And so she created this really cool S curve for this shot. So definitely a tricky pose to get in. This is definitely an experienced model that can pull off this kind of pose and make it look effortless, because that is not an easy pose to get into. So I'll probably end on just talking a little bit more about the 85. I've utilized PeerSpace a lot. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of PeerSpace, but basically it's a Airbnb for location rentals for photography and video production. So found this really great location on PeerSpace in Fort Worth that had all these different setups and scenarios to work with. So I utilized this for the 85mm campaign, and we had this really cool look where we've got all these different Edison bulbs and lights in there, and really brings out the bokeh of the camera. This guy, Ivy, was just amazing. His hair is incredible. Birdie rocked it. They kind of look like an album cover or rock stars. And so we were able to utilize all these different looks to create these effects that really showcase the bokeh of that lens. So I shot almost all of these at f1.2 or f2. And you can see how it just is so beautiful, where the eyes are in focus and then everything else just falls out of focus really nicely. Again, those S curves, adding that fog machine definitely creates a cool look. And sometimes utilizing the lights in the frame can be really interesting. You can see here the difference between using, say, a 35mm lens and a longer lens, like say the 85 or the 180 or the 105, how much difference there is. So I would say the widest lens that I would use for a headshot would be the 85. And you can go as long as you want, 200mm if you want. But really it's going to create that effect where this compression of the face is going to look really beautiful, and their features are going to be perfectly proportional. And so I definitely recommend the 85 or the 105 for headshots. Definitely really cool. So you can see, so I shot this one at f2, and it creates this perfectly round bokeh in the background. A lot of the lenses that aren't as great, you'll see kind of oval shaped bokeh, but at f2 on this new 85, oh my gosh, the bokeh is like perfectly round and beautiful. And as photographers, we geek out on that kind of stuff. So you can see that as well here. This is in the Fort Worth stockyards. Just kind of create some really cool stuff. And this was at actually a wedding venue. So as part of this campaign, they wanted a bridal wedding shoot as well. So I got to I don't shoot weddings, but we got to shoot some sort of bridal fashion. And, you know, this is that garage lighting. So we opened the doors of the venue. This is what the Lazy Hacienda, and it's kind of the Spanish venue. So we open those doors and let that light just wrap around her. It's just all natural lighting. And I actually put a leaf in front of my lens in this particular shot to give it a little bit of flair, because I love a little flair. And it just adds to that super soft effect. It's really pretty. And capturing those details. And this was one of the shots that Nikon used, and to really showcase that lens. And you can see how you can create such a cool framing effect with the bokeh. So this was actually 20 feet away, and I got behind in these cactuses. I always end up like in the corner of a room or behind some bushes or in the bushes. And it was very tricky to be in these cactuses to get this shot, but definitely was worth it, because we got this and it kind of frames them out in this particular image. This is all natural light. They had a really cool doors at this location, so we utilized those a lot. But you can see the difference when, you know, you start with the model right up against the door, and then you just utilize that lens at like f1.2 and just barely bring her off of it, and it just completely blurs that background. So it's really great for portraits and headshots. And like this one is right out of the camera. I didn't do any kind of retouching, anything to the shot. It just looks really beautiful and soft right out of the camera. I think that's really the beauty of having like an 85-1.2 lens, is that you can shoot a lot and everything looks amazing in camera. And when you shoot it at f2, the eyes are in focus, everything else just falls out of focus really beautifully. And so it softens the skin, makes everything look ethereal and beautiful. So love that lens for portraits. This was one of the shots they used as well. It's definitely my favorite lens. I probably had it on my camera 85% of the time lately. Like behind her in this shot is actually a parking lot, believe it or not. So it's really nice. Like in Texas, I'm not in Italy or somewhere just where every scenery is completely gorgeous. We have a lot of fields and a lot of things like that. So we like to blur out the background a little bit and focus on more the connection with the subject. So it ends up really good. And I feel like I don't want to keep you guys too late. It's already 6:10. So I feel like I should end here, Pete. Is that cool?
That is more than fine. This is a wonderful
I
presentation.
can go on for, people are
Yep.
getting tired of hearing me talk. So
So I think you answered most of the questions that I've seen, and I think we're good. So
cool.
thank you so much.
Let me see if I can connect to do the giveaway real quick.
All right.
Perfect. So I will choose a winner, and I'm going to go with Lisa Design and Photo. I will send you a book. So I'm going to reach out to you and ask for your address. So awesome. Thank you. And thanks for everyone who tuned in, and Pete for having me, and Adorama.
Yep, thanks, Dixie. This was wonderful. Thanks, Adorama, for hosting us. And until next time.
Perfect. Bye.
Good night, everyone.